Fire Radio.
This episode is brought to you by HME Aaron's Fox. When it comes to fire apparatus, the industry right now is facing some big challenges. Higher costs, long delivery times, and uncertainty at every turn. But that's where HME Aaron's Fox stands apart. Built in the U.S. with a legacy that dates back for over a century, HME Aaron's Fox is redefining what departments can expect from their next rig. Their lineup of custom and commercial pumpers, tankers, and wildland trucks are designed with precision, craftsmanship, and purpose. And most importantly, they're available. While other manufacturers are quoting years out, HME continues to deliver trucks that are ready for service, bucking the national trend of the new normal. They've streamlined their process, focused on smart engineering, kept their builds affordable, reliable, and attainable for departments of every size. So if your department is tired of waiting and ready to put a new rig on the street, it's time to take a closer look at HME Aaron's Fox. Visit firetrucks.com to see what's ready to roll today and experience a company that's truly flipped the script on the fire apparatus industry. Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, a very special guest, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, Tom Merrill. Tom, thanks for joining me, sir.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking.
So let's just get right into it. Author, podcast host. You host the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on the Fire Engineering Podcast channel. Popular book that I think should belong to every fire chief and every firehouse in the country. If you're not familiar, go check it out. Published by Fire Engineering Books and Video, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I have it on my shelf. I got some sticky notes in it. I took some notes along the way. It's a great resource book for the volunteer fire service, Tom. I'd love to kind of get to how you got to putting pen to paper. I know you got a few years in the fire service, so you got a lot of experience to draw on, but not everybody becomes an author. Not everybody understands that they have value to bring. So I'd love to understand maybe a little of your backstory and then how you got to where you are today, sir.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny because I'm never, ever, ever going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I am Tom Merrill from Snyder, New York, volunteer firefighter in the same fire department for going on, it'll be 43 years this November 1st.
Wow. Yeah.
And never thought I'd be doing some of the things I'm doing. I've just always had a passion for the fire service. So if you want to know the backstory, how they say things happen for a reason, and
of course,
and everything just lines up a certain way in your life when you look back on it. So I'm trudging along. You know, I joined my fire department in 1982, and I did 10 years as a captain, a few years as a lieutenant, and then when you get into the chief ranks in our area, we term out after 5 terms. So it's 5 years as a second assistant, 5 years as first assistant, then 5 years as chief. So it's a 15 years total, and then you're done. We have not had to recycle any chiefs yet. We have not done that in our history. Matter of fact, I'm very proud of our department. Since 1982, the year I joined, all of our chiefs have served 5 years without getting bounced.
Right.
Because you got to get elected every year, you know, the volunteer fire department election,
sure,
which is a whole subject on its own. But all of our chiefs have done the full 5 years since 1982, which is just awesome. So I did my terms, and I got out in 2012, and something funny happened. Things lined up. 2 things. Number one, when I was chief, or even an assistant chief or captain, one of my idols was Chief John Salka from FDNY, and also a proud volunteer firefighter. And I was always quoting him, and I was always using his training articles and making copies of them and giving them to my officers, you know, putting them in their mailbox. Read this, good points, and read all his books. And I'd always go see his classes. Well, my guys would tease me, yeah, we know, Chief Salka, Chief Salka, Chief Salka. They would tease me about it. Well, at my last banquet, we do installation banquets when we install our chief officers here, very popular in the Northeast to do things like that. When I was getting out as chief and the new chief was coming in, at that banquet, unbeknownst to me, my firefighters flew in Chief Salka as a special guest for me.
Very cool.
And I had met him once or twice, but certainly he wouldn't have remembered me. Well, we hit it off. And at dinner that night, after I gave a very short speech, And we were sitting there and goes, you should write. You got a lot to offer. You're a fire dispatcher and you just finished as chief. You can write. You know how he talks real fast. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to write about? Whatever. At the same time that this happened, around the same time, another legend in the fire service, Chief Bobby Halton, got to know him at FDIC every year, because if you knew Chief Halton, he always bounced around FDIC and he would introduce himself to people. And he never forgot a face. I don't know how he did that. Bobby Halton remembered everybody. But he had a special connection with my group because we're from Buffalo, and Bobby Halton's wife is from Buffalo.
Okay.
So every year he would remember us as the Buffalo guys. So right around the same time that Chief Salka came to my installation and said I should start writing, I go to work one day, I'm reading the obituaries, and I see Bobby Halton's father-in-law died. And the wake was that night. And I went home from work that afternoon, and I said to my wife, I think I'm going to go to Chief Halton's father-in-law's wake. Do you think that's a bad idea? And my wife's like, who would think that's a bad idea? Who's going to get... So I'm thinking, well, he's going to be so busy at the wake. I'll walk in, I'll say hi, pay my respects, and leave. I walk into the wake, and I can still see it today so vividly. There's Bobby at the corner of the funeral home, at the funeral parlor. He sees me and walks right over. And he remembered me, because he just never forgot anybody. And we talked for probably an hour at that wake about everything. And he did what Chief Salka did. You should start writing. Now, Bobby was always looking for the next writer. He was so good advocating for people to write. So again, I went home after this, and I'm thinking, geez, Chief Salka said I should write. Chief Halton said I should write. What am I going to write about? What do I have to offer the fire service? I'm not a big city firefighter. I'm not a career firefighter. But in my volunteer department, that's what I know. So I gave it some thought, and I don't know, someday, well, it just hit me. I always believed in doing the job in a professional manner.
Sure.
Treating people right, not just the public, but your own members.
Your own people.
Training hard and running your operation. I always say the professional thing is twofold. It's personally, for sure, but it's also organizationally, how you run your organization. So I put some thought into that, and I wrote my first article, The Professional Volunteer Fire Department, which was published online by Fire Engineering. And then it just poured out of me where, part 2 could be about this, part 3 could be about this, boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden I'm at 30, 35 parts that Fire Engineering put on their website, and some of the parts transitioned into their publication, the magazine, which I continue to write for. Matter of fact, I just had an article come out in the October issue. But again, I never thought that it would lead to that. Well, the next thing, I get a phone call from Chief Halton. And Bobby calls, you answer. Matter of fact, I'm at work at the dispatch center where you really got to be careful about answering your phone. But when it's Chief Halton, I tell the guy, you got to man the console and the phones. I got to
Be
get
right back. Yeah, right.
He says, Tom, why don't you put a presentation together for FDIC on your articles? What? Now, I was always comfortable presenting. It never bothered me, but I've never done it outside my own firehouse. I was always teaching drills and things like that. So I put a presentation together. And it was in 2013 or 14. And off the FDIC I go. I figure I'm a one and done. Oh no, the next year he calls me after that. That was an hour and 45 they gave me. He goes, we want you to do a 4-hour presentation. What? So that's what got me into doing my presentation. And I think, so this year I'll be, in 26, I'll be back at FDIC for however many years it's been, which I'm just honored. It's an honor to represent fire engineering. The next phone call from Bobby was, we'd like you to do a podcast. Now, I'd never done a podcast before.
Sure.
Obviously, it was new at the time. I think I started in, again, 2014, I think was the year I went live with my podcast. Okay. And then one more phone call. We want you to write a book. I thought he was just being nice to me. Nope, the contract came in the mail. So that's how everything lined up, and one thing just seemed to lead to another.
Sure.
And I never, again, pretend to be anybody I'm not. And the articles, the book, the podcast, the teaching that I've done has resonated with a lot of volunteer firefighters out there, because there's a lot of great volunteer firefighters.
Well, I think, when the message is strong, it resonates. And so why wouldn't you want to take that across all mediums, right? And so it absolutely makes sense for Bobby and the team at Fire Engineering to double down and endorse a solid product. And, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the professional volunteer fire department, there's not a lot of information out there that is directed specifically towards the volunteer fire service, right? And those are my roots. Those are your roots, right? I talk specifically about it in my program. I talk about it online and in social and on podcasts. But the thing is, and what I find in the fire service is, so many are afraid to put their thoughts and ideas out there if they don't have this big name pedigree or come from an urban city where they can talk about strategy and tactics or command and culture or tradition and so on. And so a lot of people shy away from taking the perceived risk of putting their own thoughts and ideas out there because they don't have the name or the pedigree behind them. But I would challenge people on that. You know your small town politics, your small town operations, strategy, and tactics. And there is a place for that. And in fact, the majority of the American Fire Service is rural and suburban. They are volunteer fire departments. And so we need more information out there to support the largest network of firefighters there are in the country. And I think we have to do a better job at that. And I would challenge people to look at guys like yourself and say, like, solid product, good message, a lot of information there. Hey, I got stuff I can contribute to. And I think that is where we need to get to. And today there's more opportunity in the system, right? So more people can share their thoughts and ideas. I would just challenge them to think twice before they put something out to make sure that it's solid and sound, right?
Yeah, and you know what I'd like to tell you, Jeremy, too, is I'll tell you the one thing I learned. The good people out there, the good instructors, the good leaders in our fire service, there's no ego. I had so much help along the way.
Sure.
And I am endeavoring to give back help. Matter of fact, there's a local fire chief in our area who's been writing articles and that, and I want to do everything I can to help him because he's got great ideas. And the doors were open for me. I don't know how long I'll be doing this. I want to open doors for anyone else. And you are right. There's more platforms today than ever before for the right messages. And they're always looking, just like Bobby was back in the day with me. They're always looking for writers and they're looking for contributors. And there's a lot of good people out there with good messages. And I'd encourage them to get out of their comfort zone and sell their message.
You got to bring value, right? You have to, and this is part of your message with your writings and teachings, right? Is that the volunteer fire service, yes, it's volunteer, but it's still mission forward, right? We still have to, it's the citizens and the company and each other before me, right? And that's a hard message today in 2025 when everybody walks with their head down and not so much with their head up, right? And that's one of the biggest issues we're dealing with is the individual over the whole. And so I would say this, that if you are thinking about contributing, bring value. Focus on what the fire service truly stands for, and that is promoting the others around us. That's talking about the job in a positive note. That's talking about your people, lifting your people up. You have chapter after chapter in here on all different topics, right? And it starts with recruitment. It goes through succession planning, preparation, drills and training, orientation, the application process. It goes on, right? But we have to get to the core value of what the fire service and especially the volunteer fire service is all about, and that's community and each other.
Yeah, one of my favorite taglines that I use all the time is, we live in such a nasty world today. It's judgmental, and people are angrier they seem than ever before. What I like to say is, let our Maltese cross that we all wear so proudly still show the world there's still good people in it. And they're usually down the street at the firehouse or in that fire vehicle. Don't tarnish that Maltese cross. Show the world there are good people out there. And be a good person. So much a Brunacini there, right? Just be nice to people. Why do we got to be so angry? And, I could go on and on about the things that make a professional, but it leads me to the keyboard warriors out there, And I knew I was going to get trolled when I did the professional volunteer part of it, and I do get trolled, and that's okay. I got big shoulders for 5'2", but but just be a good person, and if you don't agree with someone, fine, but you don't have to take to your keyboard and blast them, and it just drives me nuts what you see out there. So show the world that there's good people out there.
Well, the thing is this, right, and I did a post the other night that, got tremendous feedback and distribution on it. And I talked about, exactly that. And if you're that guy that's going to leave negative comments online, or you're the guy that's hiding behind a fictitious social media personality or persona, right? Then you're the same guy in your firehouse, and you're the same guy
Right.
in your life. And you hide behind, you stab people in the back, and you hide behind fictitious names, and you leave nasty comments, and you troll people because you're literally unhappy in life. And if you're doing that online, right? It's easy to do it behind your keyboard, but I promise you're doing it in your firehouse
Yeah.
too. And the guys know it. The guys know who you are, right? Like they get a sense of who you are. When we ride the trucks day in and day out, and we go to functions and picnics and company details and all these things together, we know who we want there. And those guys that are trolling people online are trolling people in their own firehouses too. And they are the cancer that can bring an organization to a crashing halt. They're the cancer that can chase people right out the door. And when your winners start to fade away, when your top 5% of your fire company stop showing up or stop caring, you have a real problem in-house, and it's because we're spending too much time on the cancer and the losers than we are on the winners, and that is a real problem in today's fire service.
Yeah, I would agree with that. True colors always eventually surface in people, no doubt. No doubt.
They do. So let me ask you, one of a very important topic for me is recruitment and retention. And I struggle with that because so often fire departments put both words in the same bucket, recruitment and retention. It should be recruitment, one issue, retention, another issue.
100%.
I also believe that we should be focusing on retention and then recruitment. It should be recruitment and it should be retention and recruitment. If you're and let me just give you my perspective, and then I'd love to go deep with you on this topic. Is I believe that we have to focus on retention first. Retention is taking care of the people that have already come through the door. We've gotten them in, and now we need to embrace them, give them what they need to thrive, and build our organization to a winning company. And then when you do that and you create that winning atmosphere, recruitment will come. But if you focus on recruitment as the solution to your dwindling manpower problem, as soon as you get new people through the door, they are disillusioned. They'll be turned off by a broken system. And when your retention doesn't work, I'm telling you, your recruitment's not going to work. Those people won't last, and there will be zero longevity. What do you think about this?
Yeah, and one of the best recruitment tools, it's not the best recruitment tool there is your current members. So
100%.
throw all the money you want.
That's right.
A media campaign and signs and billboards and all that, but word of mouth, that's still the best recruitment tool there is. And if you have happy members, engaged members, passionate members, members who enjoy going to the firehouse, members who don't drive by the firehouse because that car is in the parking lot, that can spread like wildfire outside the organization. And that may get other people to join when they see a team, camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, and those firefighters are out at a community event and they're getting along and having fun, or friends and relatives of the firefighters hear about all the good things going on at the firehouse, the passionate level of service, the competent level of service that's being provided. That can get more people to come through the ranks, and your recruitment problem may be helped there. So retention can definitely lead to better recruitment for sure. And I just think you need to, like you said, focus on who you have. They've already stepped across the threshold. They've already been training or are trained. They're the ones already going to calls. You need to keep them. And there's so much that goes into it. Heck, everyone thinks the volunteer fire service is filled with politics, and I always like to say, show me an organization that's not filled with politics. Right. It's life.
Sure.
And you know what else we don't celebrate enough in the volunteer firehouse is those life lessons. There's so many life lessons. I just said it the other night at our fire commissioner meeting. We had 2-3 new applicants come in, and one of them was a junior at 16 years of age. And I looked at the dad and said, your son is going to receive so many life lessons that even if he's only here for a short time, he can take into life with him. Sure, emergency skills, but I'm talking member of a team, a board, a committee. You go further than that as you become an officer. Inventory management, personnel management, so many great life lessons to celebrate in the walls of the volunteer firehouse that I think we should talk about when we are out recruiting. But you build that team, others see it, and it helps bring in more members as well.
Nobody wants to be a part of a losing team.
Right. Right. And there's another message that's lost in the recruitment campaigns. You got to stop with the negative ship is sinking mentality. Who's going to join a sinking ship? I like to show a picture of the Titanic sinking in my classes, and I say to a member in the audience, "Hey, I have a first-class ticket for this ship. Do you want it?"
Nobody's getting on.
Right.
Everybody's getting off.
Same with your volunteer firehouse. You know, no one's going to join a loser organization. You know, celebrate serving the community. Celebrate community service. Celebrate teamwork. Celebrate camaraderie. Celebrate second family. That's how
I also think, too, a big part of it, and we don't talk enough about it, right, is the selfish reasons for being there. And I think that's healthy, too, though. You know, growth as an individual, testing yourself and pushing yourself beyond the boundaries that you thought you could do. Those are those selfish things, but I mean selfish in a very good way.
Right.
That the fire service offers you a bountiful opportunity of experiences that you probably won't get elsewhere. And I think that when we talk about the fire service and we go through those paces of serving the public, being a part of the community, those are all great, right? But I do it because I love the adrenaline. I do it because I love the camaraderie. I love it because I'm pushing myself physically and mentally when we're going to fires. And that is the best thing I can do for my own personal growth. And so we should be focusing and highlighting on that too.
Great
because
point.
I truly believe, like you said, professional skills, no doubt. But what the volunteer fire service can do for an individual is overwhelming.
100%.
When it's done right and the institution is there to guide you, help you, and give you the tools to be the best you can be, that is the winning organization.
Yeah. Get you out of your comfort zone, that's for sure. Heck, I mean, I honestly said, and I'm going to tell a story. It's in my book. I tell it in my presentations. I got recruited by a guy I was working with at 19 years of age. We were working at a supermarket together, and he asked me to join.
Word of mouth.
Yep, and I'm
exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah, I said I'm 5'2". I said, don't they have a height limit? It got me out of my comfort zone. I was doing stuff that I never thought I'd be doing.
Yeah, you're going to be on the engine, sir. You're not
Which I was, and I love the engine work.
Right.
But again, you build that team, right? Everyone brings value, and it gave me so much. So much of what I have in life is because of the fire service. You know what else it's done for people? There's so many, these intangibles that, you know, like you said, we focus sometimes too much on some of the other things, but here's another thing that's not talked about a lot. It's going to give you a second family, and in some cases, role models and family members that some of our members never had. And there's personal stories that I could share of firefighters who came to our organization from broken homes.
Yes.
And their life could have gone in a couple different directions, one really bad, one okay. But the fire service surrounded them with good people with values, people that could teach them and show them right from wrong. And their life turned out okay. Even if they're not with us anymore, even if they were only with us for a few years, their life turned around because of the fire service.
Tom, I want to share a personal story with you in regards to that. When I was assistant chief, it was around then. We were doing background checks, and for a new applicant, and police department says to me, "Be careful with this kid. I don't know if he's going to be right for you guys. He's a troublemaker up at the high school," and he was 16, 17 at the time. And I said, okay. I said, I appreciate that. Anything and obviously they can't give you details, but, and this was like a candid off the cuff conversation. And I said, okay. Anything I truly need to be concerned about? No, just, keep an eye. And I said, okay. And they said, we're probably not a guy you're going to want. And I said, or maybe it's the exact guy I want. I said, maybe he's looking for something. Maybe the fire service can give him what he's seeking. Maybe he's missing something. Maybe he's bored of school because you took all the shop classes out. Maybe he's a hands-on type of kid who is distracted when learning. Maybe he's got a bad thing at home. Maybe the fire service is exactly what this kid needs. This kid comes in, excels. He's one of my dearest friends to this day.
Wow.
We've become the dearest of friends. And if we didn't take a chance on him, I wouldn't have him in my life as one of my closest friends, and we would have lost out on a great guy who has made so much of himself today that, and it's all because I could have taken the easy way out and said, we don't want this guy, right? I heard this or that.
Right.
But I believed in our institution. I believed in what our fire company stood for, the values that we hold close. And I said, maybe this is just what he needs. Maybe he needs direction. Maybe he needs somebody going all in on him. Maybe he's missing out on something in his personal life that we can give him here. And that is what we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Kudos to you and your organization. That says a lot about you and your organization. Yeah, the tough part too is, and there's so much that goes into this retention, but leaders in organizations need to recognize how important it is to learn that you're like a conductor of an orchestra of what I call personalities. I think Paul Combs did a cartoon once on it where there's a conductor with all the different personalities in the
Sure.
fire department are all different musical instruments, right? But that's really how it is. Not everyone thinks like you. Not everyone's like you. Not everyone has your background. And as a leader or a mentor or a senior member of an organization, you got to recognize that how you talk to people and lead them and treat them, you can really influence them in the positive direction. It sometimes is a struggle. Some of our examples were ups and downs that ended up turning out okay, but not everyone thinks like you. And if you're truly gonna build a cohesive team, you got to understand that. You got to learn how to conduct that orchestra.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
any chance we can pick this up at another time? We just had a structure fire come in.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. Look, you can
Okay.
see Franklin Lake's structure fire.
Okay.
Just
I believe
came in,
you don't
and
wanna-
it hit the county. It got dispatched 5 minutes ago, and it just hit the county, and it went out as a confirmed fire. Let's
Is
see.
it close to you?
Let's see what. Well, yeah, I'm 8 minutes away.
You can't make that up.
No. Can we reschedule this? Probably. I don't know if you're around later. I have time tomorrow. You tell me. I mean, I'll work around you. I'm sorry to do this to you, but daytime, I'm not going to miss a job over there. So
Understood.
And we're back up. So in the world of firefighting, especially the volunteer fire service, which is so fitting for the conversation we've been having, Tom. I ran out on you yesterday for a second alarm fire in my first due. My studio where we record is about 8 minutes away, and there was no way I was going to miss a home game. And so, it's easy recording with another volunteer guy that gets it because you're like, yep, go. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
And here we are a day later picking up the conversation. Kitchen fire with extension to the floor above, went right up the soil pipe, went up into the second floor walls, and then up into the attic space. But the boys did a nice job. They opened up real quick. Nice first line placement. They did a really nice job, so they held it. I think I sent you some photos yesterday.
Yep, you did. Yeah.
So on. So that was also to prove to you that I didn't run out on you. I had something else going on, so it was, but I appreciate it. But I think that's a great way to kind of, keep going with this conversation is like the importance of the volunteer fire service and putting life on hold, recognizing that there's a time and a place that we have to put our own selves on hold to go do what's required of us.
Yeah, and you know what that takes? If you're married or have a significant other, a very understanding significant other. Because I think I have stories in my book about some of the things that you can't make up some of the stories of when these calls come in. Once was my wife's birthday. I'll never forget. We were just cutting a cake and a big structure fire came in. And another time she was the PTA president and she was running a big school event. And I had one order, and that was to deliver the soda pop to this big school event. Don't screw it up.
Don't screw it up.
You're driving down Main Street in my town and you see the plume of smoke and you're like, oh my God, you just can't make that stuff up. And here we are, just celebrated our 35th anniversary. So she stuck with me. And I realized when I got out as chief, because again, it was 15 years as a chief officer rank, 10 as a captain. I realized, man, it takes someone pretty special to to put up with this. And
Well, it's a really good point because we don't do it alone, right? And, it's hard for people today, especially people outside of our organization. So even our spouses, right? Girlfriends, wives, husbands, boyfriends, whatever it is. It's hard for them to truly understand this dynamic that we're so committed to.
Right.
And without that support network at home, without the understanding, we don't have successful organizations.
Yeah, for sure. And another point with that is it also takes understanding in the department leadership. Sometimes we treat our own members worse than anybody. And you have that member that maybe doesn't come around for a little while, and instead of trying to reach out to say, "Hey, everything okay? What's going on?" we slaughter them the next time we see them. "Oh, it's about time you came around," or "Where you been?" But instead of "Hey, how's everything going at home? Everything good? Good with the job?" Things like that really can make a difference in your volunteer firefighter and how they view the organization. It really can.
That's the toxicity that has crept into a lot of organizations, especially in the volunteer service. I know it happens across the career service too, but volunteer service is a little bit different in its dynamic because it is volunteer and people do it on their own accord. So it's I'm not getting out of bed tonight. I have an early morning, right? I can't go to this call today because my kid has soccer practice, and I value that over going to the call. And what happens is, though, with toxicity is there seems to be this us versus them mentality that starts to happen in our own departments, meaning the guys, the 10% that do 90% of the work, they take such ownership of it that they end up excluding and pushing more people away because they're so tribal in I'm doing it all and you do nothing, meaning we don't value your participation because it's not as good as mine.
Right.
And you brought up a very good point because when guys walk through the door and we haven't seen them in a while, guys jump all over them. Where the hell you been? We've been pulling all the weight around here. It's nice of you to show up. You think that guy's going to come back again? You think he's going to show up the next day to get berated by a bunch of guys that, hey, guys, you're young. You don't have as much going on. I have a tremendous amount of shit going on in my life. And so, you know what? I can't do it the way you did it. And I, in fact, had this conversation with some of my younger guys once, and I was like, guys, I've been here for 30 plus years. I go, you don't think when I was 24, 25 years old that I lived here like you do? Of course I did. You weren't even born to see me do it. So get off my ass, right? Like, there is that part of it, too.
Oh, yeah. There's a dichotomy there. There certainly is. It reminds me of, we had a chief in our department. He was chief a couple chiefs before me. Early 90s, he was the chief of department. And this guy busted his ass for our organization. He had the type of job where he had to get there very early in the morning. So he would come down to our firehouse at 4 a.m. to do his chief's work and get stuff done. And he put his heart and soul into the organization for a long time, gave it everything he had, and then, moved forward 2 decades, and he's in his 60s. He's still an active member, but he doesn't come around as much as he used to. And the tendency sometimes, not all the time, the tendency sometimes is for the young, eager, energetic people that we need and we love and support that are going to a lot of the calls looking at this guy who was a past chief as well.
Right.
Like, what did you ever do? This guy doesn't do anything. You know what that takes, though? It takes leadership to step up and say, hey, hang on, guys. Hang on, girls. This guy back in the 90s was your chief. And you know what he did? Boom, 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 boom. You're going to cut him some slack. And the other thing I like to do, and we do it in our area, I don't know if it's done in your area, it's because sometimes it's controversial. In our area, when a chief steps down, and again, we get termed out after so many years, you're still a chief. People still address you as chief.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that is so important. It shows respect. It shows new people that this person was a chief. But it can be disheartening when you see someone put their heart and soul into place, and just due to age or life circumstances or whatever, they're not coming around like they used to. Still a member. They're meeting the minimum qualifications, which really, as long as they're meeting minimum qualifications, can you really get mad at them? Probably not. But when you make light of them, or volunteers are only going to come around if they want to, and you need to make them want to come around and treat them the right way. So when they do have the time, they are going to come. You can't hold a paycheck over them. You can't fire them. So what else you got?
Yeah, I think that's that really creative way of holding people responsible for their abilities. But I'm trying to find my words for what I want to say, because one of the struggles I had early on as a young chief, and I was a chief at 27 years old, and I was an assistant chief for 3 years leading up to that. I was too young, too immature to have that position. But obviously, this is happening across the fire service. And so, we want the very best to step up. And at the time, my department felt that I was the guy for the job. And so I think I did a good job in that department. I made a lot of change, and we were progressive. But I also know that my people skills were not on par where they are today at 48 years old, right? I mean, I'm 21 years later, I'm a different person today. And I know that if I were to lead the department again, it would be in a very different capacity, in a different way of how I bridge connections and so on, and talk to people and even treat people. But I found early on that I had an expectation for myself. And when I held myself to my own expectation, it was good. When I held other people to my expectation, not so good, right? So when you hold people to the expectation you have for yourself, you're often disappointed. And I think that frustration can be taken out on your people. Look at me, this chest banging, right? Like, look how good I am. Look at the time I'm putting in. Why aren't you?
Right.
And I'm guilty of that, man. Yeah. I'm super guilty of that.
It reminds me of a line I had picked up in one of the classes I took. I'm still a student of the service. I'm always taking notes. I got pages of notes behind me. I put note sticks in the books I read. But one line I'll never forget is the skills that get you elected or appointed as an officer are not the skills that are going to make you successful or sustain you as an officer. And what that means is you can have the firefighter who's your best firefighter, your best paramedic, best EMT, and you elect them, you appoint them because you think they're going to do such a great job. But when they get into that office, it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. You got to have skills. You got to know what you're doing. But now there's a whole other side to it. You got to motivate and inspire and lead and understand people. And again, like I said earlier, conduct that orchestra. And it doesn't come with the election or the appointment. Those are skills that, fortunately, you can work on every single day. And you can read about what's worked for other people and put them to the test. And you have a chance to do that every single day, more than you do. I call it the soft skills. The hard skills, that's the firefighting, the EMS work, the trauma work, all that. That's the hard skills. And you're good at that, so you got elected or appointed. Now you got to work on the soft skills. But you get a chance to work on those skills every single day in your life interactions, in your firehouse interactions. Hard skills, let's face it. It's routine. Every now and then, like yesterday for you, you get the hard skills and you get to put those to work at the fire. But it doesn't happen every day. And you got to want to do it too. You can't get elected, you can't get appointed, you can't be a leader in your volunteer firehouse and just think it's coming with the title. You have to work at it. And it's hard work. It is. And you got to have personal development. You got to want to go through I call it professional development. Read and learn from history, the military, business leaders. There's so much good information out there about how to form your team and inspire your team. And you're going to have failure. You're going to stumble. But the quitter is never going to succeed. You got to keep trying and keep working at it. And even every step, I'm 43 years in, and I talk about the new generation, learning about the new generation. I have 4 daughters, and they're all in their 20s and 30s, early 30s now. And, they're great to learn from them, and I love our new kids in the firehouse. I just did a podcast the other night with Chief John Salka. We were talking about the new kids, and yeah, they might not know a Phillips head screwdriver from a flathead screwdriver and that, but they're great kids. They just need the leadership to inspire them. And
I think we're at an interesting time, right? I do a lot of conversations around the generational talks and the disconnect within the firehouse. And, ultimately, the newest generation entering our firehouses, where they don't have the same mechanical aptitude that you and I had. And it's only because the upbringing they weren't out in the woods building forts and riding bikes and being that independent kid, getting hurt and falling off their bike and getting
Right.
back on it and so on. It's just they were raised on video games and technology, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that most of the world is advancing technologically speaking, and only the trades are left that require you to have a blue collar mindset. And so that is why, not just in the fire service, but trades across the board is lacking people that have knowledge or even interest in getting into a blue collar field. And so that requires us to work even harder at the firehouse, because that whole saying back to the basics, like, we have to go back to the basics of the basics. We have to teach mechanical aptitude before we can even tell somebody how to use a rotary saw, right? We have to teach somebody how to engage a pump and pull levers on the pump panel and understand hydraulics before you can even, you can't even teach that part of it until you teach them and the understanding of how a pump works, right? So it's those moments that now we require more out of our senior people than ever before. And Tom, I'll be honest with you, it is hard. It's hard to ask our guys that have 20, 30 years experience to continually give as much as they gave when they were in at 10 and 12 years. And that is becoming super hard because guys want to start to step back. They want to start retiring. They want to start being part of the coffee club and on training night, instead of busting their asses, they want to be able to stand back and have the conversations and cook and like help out around the fire. Like, they don't want to be on that forward line anymore. But I look at them and I go, guys, I need you. I need you more than ever. I need a 30-year guy to come to drill nights, not to socialize, but to come train with us, because those kids require it.
Right.
It's a very hard situation right now in the volunteer fire service for that.
It's funny you say that. It's not just limited to our area, is it? It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Of course.
Yeah, and it's tough. It is tough because I see, the average age in the volunteer firehouse is like 51 years of age. I think that was what the last statistic I saw, and that mirrors my firehouse. Although we are bringing in some younger people, which is good. But you're absolutely right. A lot of times the people have been doing it 20, 30 years, myself included. It's like, it's a tough drill tonight.
I want to roll over. I don't want to go to that CO alarm at 3 a.m. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, and it's a dichotomy. It truly is, because the younger people look to you for the leadership, the guidance, the experience. And what I say, too, on that with the training is, I think the best thing you can do is reach out to some of these senior members ahead of time. I don't like when they're put on the spot on a drill night. Hey, I'm going to have you do this.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, tell them ahead of time, I really would like you. And sometimes you can really fire them up and make them get really, excited for a training drill. And the last thing you want is your veteran members, even if they're slowing down and not participating, the last thing you want is them to talk badly about training, because the veteran members carry a lot of weight. And if they're down in the firehouse bad-mouthing training, I'm not going to that drill, or I'm not, it's a bunch of BS. Boy, does that filter through the ranks. You don't want that at all. So if you can get some senior members involved in training drills ahead of time, tell them well ahead of time so they can prepare. You don't want to catch them off guard, and maybe they'd be worried of embarrassing themselves because they got to spruce up on some of the skills. And that can also break down the cliques. You talk about cliques. You get the generations training together. Oh, man. And I always like to say, in most firehouses, ours for sure, we're the land of pizza and wings, and we eat after every drill. And you get the generations sitting down together after a training drill where you have a good drill, and you get the stories going, and the veteran members telling stories, the junior members listening to those stories, and just everyone having a good time. Everyone leaves happy. I think it's the best. So.
Yeah, the other thing too is it gives the older members purpose, and it makes them feel like they're still needed. I think so many guys, I watch a lot of the older guys in my department, how they start to fade into the background, and before you know it, it's almost like they were there of yesterday, and they're no longer present because they feel like they've outgrown, life has passed by them in the firehouse, right? And with that, I I struggle with that because they are so valuable for the success of our department and the storytelling and the tradition and culture, building those foundational blocks for the next kid to educate them. That's their job, right? But when you as an officer base or the senior guys in the firehouse look to those older guys and say, hey guys, I need you. Can you come down on Monday night? I need you here Monday night. I'd love for you guys to run this for me. Or can you we're going to do pump training. We're going to stretch lines. I'd love for you guys to monitor the newer guys on the pumps. Give them purpose and let them feel like they're still a part of it. And
100%.
not only is this successful for your organization, but it's also gives those older guys that purpose again, that feeling of they still need me here. I still matter, you know?
Yeah, it's respect. It's
Yeah.
respect. It's sense of purpose. Here's another thing I like to tell people. I challenge you, anyone listening to this program, if you're a senior member, I challenge you at your next social event, sit with the junior member.
Yeah.
You all have your crew of your friends that have been friends for 40 years. That's great. But you know what? Go over to a table with the younger members and sit with them. Or I challenge younger members that are listening to this program. Go sit with the senior members. Just sit down. Anyone sitting here? Can I sit here? Ask them some questions. When did you join? What was different back then? What did you like about things back then? Tell me about some of the big incidents, you know? Don't be afraid of each other. But boy, talk about mutual respect there. If you do that, again, I get so disappointed when I hear about poor morale in the volunteer firehouse. And just like my book, The Professional Volunteer Fire Department, so much of what I like to talk about, I'm not the smartest person in the room. It's not rocket science. It's some basic little things we can all do to improve morale, to build that team, to inspire each other, to demonstrate respect for each other. Whether it's understanding the 20-something-year-olds understanding that these 50 and 60-year-old guys and gals were the exact same way they are today. That's how the 50 and 60-year-olds were 30, 40 years ago. And the 50 and 60-year-olds understanding that, hey, these new kids, yeah, they're a little different. They don't mow the lawn or whatever it is, but I'm going to teach them how to be a firefighter because they bring a lot of good skills to the table that I don't know. Matter of fact, hey, I'm having an iPhone problem. Can you help me figure this out? Things like that. It's just that mutual respect.
It goes up the line and down the line. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And I love that. In the program that I do, the Bridging the Gap, I go through all the generational stuff. And the last slide on the generational stuff is Generation Firefighter. And I say, you know, it doesn't matter if you're 85 or 16. We have a commonality that nobody else shares in this world. And so we can break bread. And my friends outside of the fire service can't understand that at a barbecue at my house, I have 85-year-old men and 16-year-old kids there. And there's a commonality between them. And we're all friends. And we don't see age.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing about it, right? That is who we truly are. And so that mutual respect goes a very long way. I want to ask you about this. I think a lot of times in the fire service we find excuses why the volunteer fire service is dying. We find things that we hold as truths when in fact they're partial truths, but maybe we're not doing enough on our end. Maybe it's easier to roll over and quit instead of fighting for it. We talk about families that have multiple incomes, the wives or a husband's work, and now it's 2 jobs and soccer practice and all these activities for the kids and all these things. Those certainly get in the way of volunteerism. There's no doubt, right? But I think about other things that we can control. We've talked about a few of them, but how about making the firehouse a priority again?
Yeah.
Like, we have so many organizations have come off the rail where people don't even enjoy walking through the door there anymore. And I always say that if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
We should be enjoying our time there while building life skills and making ourselves better than ever before. I mean, you can sharpen your skills there. You become a better person there. There's so much to offer. But when it's toxic or it's not endorsing one another to be the best they can be, nobody prioritizes the place anymore. And so all of a sudden your kid's soccer practice will become more important than going to that call, right? Or sleep or your job becomes more important. I understand that. I understand all of it, right? But there has to be there's a balance built in. And when you don't allow people to enjoy your fire company and you strip that from them, they will never prioritize getting back to the firehouse. And it's the winning fire companies that I've seen. I travel all over the country. I go to firehouses, career and volunteer, all over the country. There are incredibly successful volunteer programs out there across the country that are winning, that are gaining new members and retaining their members. And it all comes down to a winning team. And it all comes down to people prioritizing that they want to be there. Nothing drives me up a wall more when my guy, we had a fire yesterday, second alarm fire. Great job. The guys, great stretch, great opening up. They held the fire. I mean, just everything was bread and butter textbook yesterday. I want every single guy in my fire department, like, send pictures. Let's talk about it. Who did this? Who did that? Right? There's nothing. If I miss a fire, I go bananas. I'm like, I want to talk to the first and nozzle guy. I want to talk to the chief. I want to hear every little detail. When your fire department isn't interested in the details of a fire, there's a problem. It drives me nuts, right? Winning cultures, every single guy is angry they couldn't be there.
Yeah, 100%.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, 100%. You know, you brought up an interesting point. So, the time factor, you hear that all the time. It's different times today. Everyone's busier than ever before. So,
sure.
And I'm not going to dispute that people aren't busy, but
right.
I don't want people thinking we weren't busy 30, 40 years ago either.
That's correct.
But here's what I like to say. I just had this conversation a few weeks ago in my firehouse, and a very good natured discussion with some people. Why haven't you been around? Oh, things are just so busy. You guys just don't understand. You weren't as busy as we are today. And I thought to myself, you know what you guys have today that my wife and I never had? Amazon. We actually had to go shopping. Yeah. We actually had to get babysitters to go Christmas shopping. I watched my niece, who I love dearly, 20-something years old, she doesn't even grocery shop. She sits on her couch and goes, boop, 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 and the food gets delivered. You know what else we had to do? Once or twice or maybe 3 times a month? Sit down and write checks and pay bills. It wasn't auto-deducted. I couldn't hit one button and transfer money. So I think we were pretty busy 30, 40 years ago. Maybe it's a different busy today. I don't know. My wife was the PTA president 30 years ago. And yeah, we were busy, but maybe our priorities were a little different. And again, I use this word a lot, dichotomy there, family first, no doubt. But are there things we can do to energize that firehouse that make people enjoy being there, maybe have social events to get it coming up there, reward the families, so when the tones drop and you leave, they understand a little bit more. It is a dichotomy, but I don't buy this that times are busier today. I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly different, and, it's, I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but what my point is this. We have to prioritize the volunteer firehouse. And, if you create an environment that people want to be a part of, you create an environment where if people miss something there, they're upset and angry about it. That's right. The fuel to bring them back. Every moment they have to be there, they will be there. And every opportunity they get to go there, they will go there. Yeah. But when you don't make it a priority for people, they will choose Monday Night Football at the bar over going to a run or hanging out at the firehouse, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
And we have to do a better job at prioritizing the firehouse. And listen, people are busy. I say it all the time, right? You call a friend, right? The first conversation you have with, how you been? I'm busy. I'm busy. Nobody says I'm poor. Nobody says, man, I wish I had more money in the bank account. I wish I had more zeros in my checking account or savings account. They tell you they're busy. That tells me that they value time over money. Right? And what's really funny is watching departments in a volunteer system go to a stipend program. And the first 3 months, the stipends are through the roof. Everybody's coming out. And then 6 months later, it's the same bullshit again. And it's because money doesn't fuel it and money doesn't fix it. Right. You have to fix the culture to make people want to be there.
Yeah.
That is how we win. And if we prioritize the firehouse and make people feel good when they're there, they feel accomplished and get fulfillment out of it, they will come out every single time.
Yeah. I always say the firehouse should be a great escape. We all have life pressures, whatever it is, your job, your family, whatever, bad day at the office. Life is life, and it can be very, very a lot of pressure. The firehouse should be a great escape, a place you can go to escape those life pressures and hang out with the brothers and sisters, and again, enjoy being there. And I circle back all the time because I've heard these stories. you don't want to drive by the firehouse because that person's car is in the parking lot. That just
Right.
goes against everything we stand
We've
for.
all done it. We have all done it.
Yeah, should never
Yeah.
be that way. So
I think you're right on so much of this, and I want to excite people to understand that the volunteer fire service is an incredible institution and it offers so much for people, but we have to allow our people the opportunities to flourish.
yeah,
And when we strip down people, nobody wants to go there and be talked down to. Nobody wants to go there and feel unaccomplished or be embarrassed, right? You want to create an environment where everybody feels that they took away something and that they're an active participant to making this organization better. And in return, the fire service will do so much for you.
yeah.
And I think a big part of this today, and I hear it all the time, is toxic leadership.
Well, you know what
And
they
toxic-
say, leadership. Everything
I mean-
begins with leadership.
Toxic leadership in the volunteer fire service, even in the career fire service, and the fire service in general, is flourishing. And you have people walking away from organizations, and this is where I'm talking about. You don't prioritize the fire service. You don't prioritize your firehouse. People are not going to stick around if it's a sinking ship. We talked about that before.
Yeah,
And a lot of it comes from poor leadership or lack of leadership.
yeah, yeah. The bookshelf behind me. Every one of those books is a leadership book. And I'm not saying I'm a great leader at all, but I want to learn. What made people successful? What worked? What didn't work? Military, politicians. Yes, there are some good politicians that were good leaders. I always use Eisenhower. I tell a story all the time. I'm a big history guy. You know, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the man who led us to victory across Europe, planned the Great D-Day invasion, right? Helped defeat Nazi Germany. Look at who he had to work with. You know, you had on one side, he had blood and guts Patton, hard charging, just a hard driving man. On the other side, he had Bernard Montgomery from the British, who was very arrogant and maybe egotistical. And then in the middle, you had Omar Bradley, who was called the gentleman's GI General, humble, liked to remain in the background and didn't want a lot of attention. And Ike easily could have said, I can't work with this, sucks, I quit, but he didn't do that. He knew how to lead each of those different people and got the most out of them, and look what they accomplished. You can do that in your firehouse. You truly can. You just have to remember, nobody thinks like you. Nobody is like you, but everybody in their own unique way can bring value to your volunteer firehouse. Doesn't mean they're all going to be taking a hose line down a hallway. Not everybody. I know people that joined our volunteer firehouse to play softball. Not everyone is going to join and want to be on that hose line, which might be hard for us to understand, but that's just how it is. But everybody, if led the right way, can bring value to the organization. Now, I'm not saying you don't establish expectations. Yes, you got to have minimum expectations and minimum training guidelines and all that. But if you respect them, get to know them, and lead them correctly, you can have a winning team.
Well said. Really well said. Let me ask you this. How we talk about the fire service. I think you mentioned you have 4 daughters, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
So I have 4 kids as well. I have Michael, Kendra, Paige, and Lily. And Lily, my 17-year-old, is the only one that wanted to join the firehouse. And she caught me off guard with it, too. I tell the story all the time. But, and I love having her there, and it's actually made me better. It's held me more accountable, right? It's gotten me excited again, right? All those things, right?
From people that have had that same experience. Yeah.
Sure. But here's the thing. Out of 4 children, only 1 joined.
Right.
And I'm looking at legacy firefighters today. I'm looking at generational firefighters, and so many families, so many guys and men and women of the fire service, their children are not joining the ranks, especially the volunteer fire service. And that's troubling to me because for me, it was a no-brainer growing up. I have 2 brothers. There was 3 boys in our house. All 3 of us joined, right? 2 of us are ex-chiefs, and then my other brother was a softball guy. I mean, he served as a lieutenant and stuff, but he truly loved the firehouse for the social aspect. He was a good fireman, but he doesn't. Riding on the trucks and going to fires is not his excitement anymore. You know what I mean? Which still drives me to this day, right? But we all did it for our own reasons, but we're all very successful at it and have made an impact on our organization. I look at so many guys in my firehouse today, their kids are not members. And I scratch my head and I often think about this and I go, why?
Yeah.
Because I know for me, the firehouse has done so much and the fire service has given me so much because I've given myself to it, right? And I look at like the return I've gotten. And yes, there are down days, there are tough days, there are days. I mean, not too long ago, I would say 6 months ago, I was ready to tell these guys to go pound it. I had it out with our command staff. I had it out with a lieutenant that was overstepping and immature. And I said, you can't do this here. Like, this doesn't work here. How dare you? You know, like you're not representing what this fire department stands for. And I was almost ready to walk away. And in fact, I had made some moves to go ride elsewhere. And that for me was very hard. And I think about how many people have been pushed away from the fire service, how many people have left because of that poor leadership and stuff like that. But my point is this: when you go home at night, you leave training, you come back from calls, how do you talk about the firehouse at home? Do your kids get, let me just finish my thought, Tom, and then I would love to hear you rip on this. Do you go home and speak negatively about it? Screw this guy. This is ridiculous. I hate this. These guys they don't know what they're doing. If we're constantly talking down and negative about it because the environment is down and negative, of course our kids aren't going to want to be a part of it. They want nothing to do with it, right? But if we go home and we talk about the success of it, all my kids know every single guy in my firehouse. They know them by name. All my guys know my kids. It's a great relationship, even though we've had issues along the way. Nothing's perfect. It's how do we work through those issues. But at the end of the day, I think a big part of it is if we're not speaking highly about the benefits of the volunteer fire service, if we're not singing the praises of what it's done for yourself and what it can do for other people, of course nobody's going to come, especially your own children.
Such a good point. What a talking point, because we have had this exact conversation in my firehouse.
I'm sure.
I look back over the generations, and so few children of firefighters the last 30 years have joined. We've had some, matter of fact, we've had some that even have had 3 or 4 of their kids join, but not nearly as many as could join, including none of my 4 daughters. Neither one of them joined. They all have successful careers now.
Sure.
Have gone on, but they just never had the impetus to join. Now, I don't think in my personal case, it's not because I came home. I very rarely would talk negative.
Oh, I get that. I'm not saying that. Please,
no, I think what scared them off, honestly, was the time. I really do, because I was a dad that lived and breathed the firehouse, and I was up there. I remember leaving Little League games because I had a commissioner's meeting or a drill I had to get to, and I think they saw that time. So, but I've often wondered why more of our kids didn't join the firehouse. That's a great question, and yes, no doubt, if mom or dad comes home and does nothing but complain about the firehouse, yeah, they're not going to join. But I think in my case, and in some cases, it's just they saw how much time it was going to take away from their school or their college life or whatever it is.
That's a really good point.
The other thing I see now is, now that they're young adults, matter of fact, I just became a grandfather on Friday for the first time. And
awesome.
My daughter is already saying, when's Santa coming to the firehouse? All those things we did when they were kids. Now we have a truck or treat event coming up for Halloween.
Yeah.
I wonder if she was talking about bringing her new baby to the truck or treat event. So those fun things resonate with them, which is great. And to your point, if it was all negative experiences, they wouldn't talk about that at all. But it's funny, the picnic came up and the Santa Claus and Halloween and all that fun stuff now. Once they think of that and how fun that was. But just conversely to that, if it was all negative, yeah, you're not going to get more members. And what a great recruitment tool, right? If everyone brought in one son or daughter, oh my gosh, that would really help. Now, let's talk about the family for 1 second. Just because you're the chief's son, just because you're the president's daughter, doesn't mean you get a pass as a probie. Doesn't work that way. It does a lot, right? But it shouldn't work that way. You got to earn your way. You were a guest before you signed that application. Well, that application being filled out, you're now a member. You're a firefighter in our organization, and you're going to earn your way just like everybody else did. there's no special privileges because your dad or your mom's the fire chief. But
I
that's a problem that rears its ugly head quite a bit.
I very much had that conversation when Lily wanted to join at 16, and I said, you know, at first, I was going to tell her no. I was going to tell her no. This is my house, my stories, my guys, my tears, my laughters. I don't want my daughter to have a front row seat of that. And then very quickly, and I never said that to her. I've talked to her about it after the fact. But then very quickly, and that was a 3-second thought in my head when she told me she wanted to join. And then, as any father would be, I said, I'd love to have you there. But internally, I struggled with it for a few seconds, and I was like, do I want this? Do I want her exposed to this? You know what, as a protective father? But then I said, how dare I? How dare I take away an opportunity from her that I had? And
Right.
why? Because she's my daughter? Like, she doesn't deserve the same opportunity? Do I think that she's going to be a lifelong firefighter? No. You know, but she enjoys it. But she wants to go, she's going to go to an incredible college. She wants to go to law school. She wants to be a corporate attorney. I will tell you, she'll probably be a congressman or a congresswoman one day. Like, there's no doubt. This woman, she's an incredible kid, right? And she's got so much in front of her. But if the fire service can give her a foundation that she grew up through, so the moments that you said your daughter's asking you about, my kids have all those fond memories too. And now Lily's a part of it. And so I'm thinking, if she's a member for a few years, what a great opportunity for her. But I almost told her no. I almost took that away from her. How dare I take that away from her? That nobody has the right to write your story.
I think there's two reasons you might say, you know, that you were nervous. Number one is exposing her, because we all have the internal stuff that goes on, and you're like, do you really want, you know, her to experience that internal discord that sometimes occurs? But the other part of it, I'm sure there's a safety factor too, right? As dad, you want her to be safe, and you don't want her to get into harm's way. But like you said, man, the life experiences she's going to gain in those few years that she spends there, and if it's done right, the rest of her life, she will talk highly of her time spent in the volunteer fire service, if it's done right.
And I almost took that away from her. And I talk about that in my program. That's how I start off my program when I talk about my family. And I say that, how nobody has the right to write your story. You have the opportunity. But unfortunately, in the volunteer fire department, a lot of people's stories get cut short because of terrible management or the people they meet on the way in, and they don't stick around long enough to kind of filter those people out. And so first impressions matter. How we treat people matter. And if you have a department where people are not putting in time, if you have a department where your winners are fading away and your all-stars, because every department has them, your all-stars aren't getting the necessary attention, tools, equipment, funding, whatever they need to be rock stars, right? You have a losing organization, and there's a problem built in. And I think we have to do a better job at looking at that. And a lot of that comes from the people that are in the positions of power today within our departments. And we have to do better.
Do you think that one of the reasons the participation has dropped off is because so many volunteer departments are so much busier than they were 20, 30 years ago?
700. 700 is the number in my world that any home response volunteer department, 700 calls for service is a tipping point.
Interesting.
That's what I think. In all my doings and conversations and so on, I think 700 is that number that when you're north of 700, and now it's obviously fluctuates, 600, 800, right? It fluctuates. But when you hit that 700 mark, calls for service, that is a tipping point that most home response departments have to make a move. We have to either get volunteers on a duty crew in-house. We can't, how many times, I mean, I can't, there's days that we have 6, 7, 8 runs a day, and we run just fire. We don't even do EMS. If we did EMS too, we'd be going out the door probably 10 times, 12 times a day. Right? So when you start looking at that, it's a big number to ask. When I first joined, I think we were doing 350 calls. And now we're upwards between 600 and 700 calls. And we do straight fire, no EMS. we're getting to that point where it's a tremendous burden and ask for people to drop their lives four times a day, 2 times a day, right? This isn't a sleepy town anymore. And so we have to look at that. But I believe 700 is the number. And yeah, I think when you go to, false alarm after false alarm after false alarm, complacency sets in.
100%.
And now you're like, oh, we're going to Quarter Road again, which is a 55 and older facility, 3 big mid-rises in our town. We go there. We have any type of alarm there is a multiple agency response for high occupancy. So we get an additional 1-in-1 from 2 neighboring towns. So we get an engine from a neighboring town and the truck from another neighboring town. So we get an additional 1-in-1. We've had fires in there before, but chances are we're going for a broken pipe, food on the stove, a carbon monoxide alarm, an issue with a dryer, and it's the same bullshit time and time again. So the complacency starts to creep in, and now guys aren't getting out of bed. Now guys aren't racing over there at 6 o'clock in the evening because traffic in town is terrible, and you're fighting to get there. And we already know PD's arrived. When we're pulling out the bay, PD's on scene reporting burnt food. So we already know, right? So it's that whole environment in the volunteer fire service that certainly plays to what's happening today. There is a tremendous ask of our people today, right? But I also believe that if you create an environment where they can shine and we pick our people up, I hate missing alarms and something happens. I love the coffee after the run. I love the conversations and the camaraderie. And so I still value that very much. But I could see for people that are getting disillusioned or talked down to, or, hey, where you been? I haven't seen you in a couple weeks, right? God forbid you actually reach out and talk to them and say, hey, Joe, I haven't seen you in a couple weeks, man. Everything okay at home? Yeah. Yeah. You imagine the impact that would make on somebody? Just a simple text or phone call. Hey, I haven't seen you around the firehouse in a month. I just want to make sure everything's okay. But instead,
when you walk through the door, you say, hey.
We berate them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, no doubt. So I think we're at a really interesting crossroads, and there's so much here, right? This isn't something that you and I can unpack in an hour and a half in a podcast. But I think when we look at it, it stems from the cultural organization itself. And what type of fire department do you have? Whether you're going out the door 100 times a year or 1,000 times a year, do you enjoy being there? Does your department give back to you? Do they recognize the importance of your time? Are they considerate, compassionate, empathetic? Is your organization doing everything they can for you as the individual? Servant leadership, we work for our people. Our people are the ones that get the trucks off the apron and get on the road. And if we don't take care of them, we crumble. And when we crumble, we turn around and blame society. We blame this, we blame that, 2 incomes. I work hard, I do this, I do that. Sure, that's all true. But there's still winning fire departments out there that are winning every day because their environment gives the people what they want, and people want to be a part of a winning team. Period.
100%. Yeah, no one wants to be a part of a losing team. No.
But I think 700 is an interesting number. I think that's a number that should be looked at. I'm actually kind of creating content around that because that is where you have to start focusing on the service to the residents. And I haven't even gone down this road with you, but how many departments are truly burying their heads in the sand about the level of service they're providing their communities?
Right.
2 guys at 65 years and older getting an engine out for a fire alarm is not an adequate response. But hey, we checked the box. We got a truck there, right?
And I, excuse me, what I like to say too is, you got to be honest with the community. If that's what you truly have, 65, 70-year-old guys getting the truck out, don't be ashamed. That's what you've been given. That's what your community's providing you with. That's what your community has to understand that they're going to get, because people aren't coming forward to volunteer. So be honest about it. Be honest with your community. Let them know. Instead of just saying, we need members, let them know, here's the services we can expect to provide. However,
I think so many departments bury their heads in the sand that there's a problem and they don't know. And I think in some regard, some departments don't know how to tackle it. It's such a big problem. It has snowballed. It's run down the hill for years now, and they've realized now, shit, what do we do? and we're so far behind the eight ball where this snowball's been rolling down the hill and it's so big now. How do we slow that momentum down? And I think a lot of departments are overwhelmed with that task, and maybe they don't know how to start the conversations about, hey, I don't want to lose our identity as a volunteer fire service, but what are we going to do about this?
Right.
That's a hard conversation for a lot of people to have. A lot of organizations are thankful that they haven't gotten caught with their pants down. We had a job yesterday. Nobody could have showed up, but we have safeguards in place. We transmit an automatic second alarm for any confirmed structural fire in our town, and so we know we're getting additional resources coming. We had a good day yesterday, and we got out 4 pieces, and we probably had 12 guys from my own jurisdiction in a daytime at a structural fire for room and contents with extension. But we also had an additional 2 engines and a truck there to support us, and that probably brought an additional 15 guys. So, we were okay on the first alarm. But there can be a day where the engine pulls up with 2, and I've driven driver only to a structural fire. So I get that.
Yeah. It reminds me, about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now, we have 10 departments in our town of Amherst, and one of the neighboring departments had a real good daytime fire, and again, we do the auto aid and all that as well. And I'll tell you what, this was a ripping garage fire, and the brothers and sisters knocked the hell out of it and saved that house. They did a tremendous job. And I looked at the people power, the manpower on ground, and we killed it, 30, 40 people on scene. And then you hear the stories about that automatic alarm with 2 people at 70 years of age. And it made me wonder if, and this could be a deep dive conversation someday and could be controversial, but is the volunteer fire service doing too much? Are we expecting too much of our people to be the end-all, be-all for every type of call that comes in? Or can we get back to just being there for the really serious emergency that the volunteer fire service was originally organized for, which in the day was fire? But should it maybe be looked at where they're just going to the true emergency calls? Fire, yes. Fire alarms, yes, because it could be a fire. And just the serious EMS calls. I don't know. It's a conversation.
So I love it, and I'm trying to think who, off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I'd have to scroll through my phone because I leave so many notes of people in my phone of conversations I've had. There's a department, God, I can't think of it. They have emergency responders, not just firefighters, but emergency responders. And if they have a power line down and it's not on fire, the emergency responders can stand by and police it, right? And if they have a service call for a water condition and the firemen can get there and they can isolate power and gas to the building and now it's a pump out. So what I was saying is emergency responders. So it is controversial, no doubt. And you're 100% right. But the other thing I want to touch on too, the emergency calls is one thing. I'm okay. You want to send me to a broken pipe. You want to send me to a service call to help grandma replace batteries because her alarm. I'm fine with that, right? That's part of what we do. My issue is educating the community or educating the municipality that I can't send guys in Class A uniforms to every single event they have in town.
Right.
Like, you have to look at valuing your people's time, not just on the emergency side. If we're going to prioritize what our services are, it has to be firematic first, everything else second. That's the mission, right? We are a fire department. That means we go to emergency calls first, and everything else is second. And when they have event after event where we'd love to invite the fire department, we want the fire department to have a presence there. Please come, please come, please come. It's like, I can't keep asking my people to do all these events because, listen, the police department's there for sure. They're getting paid. Right? Like, your organizations are there because they're slower organizations. The one thing I talk about a lot, I'm getting passionate about this. I'm very passionate about this. But the one thing is, like, we're not the library commission. We're not the recreation. We are not organizations that meet once a month, right? This is an organization that gets up in the middle of the night, that runs out on Christmas, that can go out the door 50, 60 times a month, plus training, plus meetings. I don't have time to go to the town carnival and stand there for 8 hours with a booth. Now, I wish I could, and I hope we do as a department, but if I can't get anybody to turn out for that, you have to understand that that's a tremendous ask.
Right. Yeah. And what I like to tell people is just be honest with the people asking you. That what's going to get the people, and this is part of what I call one of the professional equation to it is, think of a business that you call and no one gets back to you. At least give them a call to say, appreciate the invite. Please understand we'd love to be there, but I just don't have the time or the people to do that right now. At least give them an answer if you're not going. Don't leave them hanging.
But we're afraid to say no, right? We're afraid in the volunteer
are
fire
afraid to
service.
say
We're
no.
afraid to say no because next thing you know, they're going to ask why we're asking for capital for $150,000 for new extrication equipment. They're going to ask why we need a new command vehicle. They're going to ask why we need an addition to the firehouse, and we
Right.
care about all that shit rather than appropriate staffing. And we'll fight and argue for money for equipment and projects, but we don't fight for money for staffing and making sure that we occupy our fire apparatus.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
a problem.
It is. It is. And, I want to touch on one other thing, if I may. When it comes to all of this, reinventing the volunteer fire service or examining how we're doing things and looking to make change and, before all of a sudden we say, like you just said, what are we going to do, right? My message is this. Don't be afraid to say, let's try that. Mm-hmm. Don't fall back on the line, well, we've never done that before. That's not what we do here. And I'll give you a story. Like most departments, we have a recruitment and retention committee. And they're always looking at doing things to bring in new members. And I think it's about 3 years ago, just this time of year, they came to our Board of Commissioners with a new idea. And they said, look, this isn't something we invented. We've seen this working in other areas. We'd like to try it in Snyder, New York. Okay, what's the idea? Well, for 80 plus years, anyone joining our department has had to make a certain percentage of calls to stay as an active member, a member in good standing. It's 25%. You need to make 25% of our fire and EMS calls, and we run 12 to 1,300 calls a year. And your drills and other things like that, but to be active and considered in good standing. Okay, yeah, that's how we do it. Well, we think there's a whole nother group of people that we could get to join our department if we didn't hold them to that percentage. In other words, they could maybe commit to doing so many hours a month, but they can't commit to running out the door every time a call comes in. And this would appeal to people that travel for work, people who maybe coach a little league or a hockey team, or whatever else, single parents that maybe have to watch their kids every other weekend. Whatever it is, we think if we went to what we call a duty shift program, we could have members join and give us hours. So it wasn't like they came to us in the Board of Commissioners right away, said, sure, let's do it. Like any board, there was internal discussion, there was debate, there was disagreement, but we digested it over a few months. We talked about it, went back and forth with the committee, and finally it came time for a decision. We ran around the table, and there were still some naysayers, but then the board said, what do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? If it doesn't work, we'll stop it or tweak it and change it. But what do we have to lose? Jeremy, the first year, 35 new members. I'm not making that up. Not making that up. We're now over 40-something members in the 3 years we've had it. Now, there's been some struggles. It's not all rosy, but some of these members are damn good members of our organization. And it was just trying to reinvent and change something that we've always done just to stay with the times. It still needs some tweaking, still needs some modifying, but it brought us a lot of new members.
And not only that, it's providing an appropriate coverage for your municipality.
Right.
The mission. Right.
And you've probably seen it when you've traveled. I've been in areas of the country where they do duty staffing and you are assigned a shift. Ours is still you sign up for what you can fill. But I've seen where people are mandated, Monday through Friday, whatever it is. You're going to be at the firehouse from 6 p.m. to midnight, however they do it. But again, it's just thinking outside the box. Don't be so afraid to try something new.
I would agree with you 100%, and this takes me down that road, and I want to kind of start wrapping, but I think what we need to do, Tom, and I've talked about this with Kevin Quinn from the National Volunteer Fire Council, and in fact, we're looking at, you and I talked I brought you up to speed that I'm looking at next year to do a volunteer fire summit in the Northeast where we bring in speakers and we start addressing some of these issues. I want volunteer fire companies to understand this. There is a huge network out there of information to be shared. And I know it's not a clean pipeline to find the information you're looking for, but I'm trying to do something on our end to streamline the process of where people can find this playbook. Because the thing is what you're doing in Schneider is probably winning, and you guys had to develop the program. And I have to think that there's other places that have programs in place that are successes. And then there's other programs that are not successes, and they've learned from their mistakes or trying something, but they took the chance to try. My point is this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have a lot of fire departments at that 700 number that are struggling right now of trying to figure out what the next step is. Don't feel alone. You're not on an island and you're not isolated. There are tremendous resources and fire companies out there that are willing to help you share SOGs and guidelines and bylaws and construction plans. If you want to put in dormitory style living, look at colleges, look at young adults, look at high school programs. There's so much stuff out there. But we have to develop a pipeline where that information is readily available to people that are seeking it. But I want to challenge you, or challenge the listenership on this, is that if you're going through any of these issues that we talked about today, reach out, because we can put you in touch with departments that are winning. We can put you in touch, get you copies of SOGs, get you copies of plans or things that departments have done to better their staffing, better their delivery of services. It is available. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in every fire district.
Not at all. That's the importance of networking, too. I like to tell the young people, yes, there's so much out there, especially between these podcasts and YouTube and all that. But still, if you can get to conferences and network and meet people, too, you'll find people that are similar experiences, similar challenges and issues and problems. And if nothing else, you're going to have new friends for life, too. Yeah. Every time I travel and my wife says, "How was the conference?" I come home and tell her, "Made 100 new friends." Yep. That's what's wonderful about our fire service.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I pinch myself all the time and say I'm the luckiest guy in the fire service, because the amount of people that I've gotten to meet, the contacts I have on my phone, I mean, I've been able to develop a network that is invaluable, and I'm so grateful for it. And Tom, you are certainly one of those new guys in my phone, and I appreciate you very much for taking time. I'm sorry that it was a 2-day long episode, but the job. Listen, we got to go to jobs. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? So
That's right, brother. Yeah.
Tom Merrill, the professional volunteer fire department, right here. The book published by Fire Engineering. What a great read. I would suggest that if you don't have it on the shelf of your firehouse, get it on your shelf. If you're a chief or an officer or a commissioner, I believe that this book can help you be that guidebook to help you start looking at the future of your department. And I think that there's a lot here, Tom. And so thank you for taking the time to join me. You also have the Professional Volunteer Fire Department podcast on Fire Engineering podcast radio. So congratulations on your continued success, your love of the volunteer fire service, and thank you for our new friendship. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Well, it's my honor to be here with you, and I agree. I was going to say the same thing. You stole my line, too, that now I have you in my phone as well, because that's what we do, right? So every now and then you get a text message from me, brother.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And in fact, I'd love to pick this conversation up again with you at another time. I think there's just so much more here that we can get deeper on. And I appreciate your insights and your experience, and that absolutely matters in this job. And I thank you, sir. Where can people reach out if they want to contact you? How can they get a hold of you, Chief?
Okay, I'll tell you what. I have a Facebook page, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I have a website, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. My email, don't laugh, I'm a boomer after all. It's T.A. Merrill. That's T as in Tom, A as in Albert, Merrill, Merrill, followed by the number 63 at AOL.com. Hey, it works, so I kept it, you know. And,
bro, I still have an AOL account too. That's my that's become my junk account for all my shopping and all that stuff. But you know,
my kids like to make fun of me about that. But no, TA Merrill 63 at AOL.com. If anybody wants a copy of the book, you can email me. I'd be happy to sign it and send it off to you. Awesome. But it's also on Fire Engineering. You can just Google it. It's on their website. Fire Engineering books and videos, as well as Amazon. But I'm proud of it. It was a lot of work,
Should be.
and but I'm really proud of it.
A
I hope it can
tremendous
help.
amount of work went into this. This is not, I mean, it's like 360, 70 pages. I mean, this is quite a book, but it's a great textbook in reference for what the volunteer fire service should look like.
And I'm no expert either, Jeremy. I tell people all the time, there's companies out there doing unbelievably great professional things. So I like to learn from them as much as maybe they can pick up from me. So share with me your stories, your ideas, and what's working, or maybe things that haven't worked. Because let's keep the conversation going, like you said, brother.
I love it. Well, thank you again for joining me. If you guys are interested, reach out to Tom Merrill. Let him know. Pick up his book. Listen to his podcast. Give him some support. He's got a lot of great things to say about the volunteer fire service. Tom, thank you. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off the show. Come right back to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Like I say at the end of every single episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it. Because I truly believe when we talk about the job, we're making the job better. I'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.